Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Batman Superman World's Finest issue 36 by Mark Waid, Adrian Gutierrez, Tamara Bonvillain. The war for the ocean floor comes to its climactic conclusion as Lorie Lamaris kisses her old flame Superman, quickly pushes her away, reminding her that she is married. It's too late though, as Ronal has already seen them. Blinded by rage, he attacks Superman, coming at him with his trident, which shatters against Superman's indestructible skin. It's good that this is kind of getting it out in the open right at the beginning of the comic, kind of like laying down the law that this is a married woman, Superman's not interested in stuff like that. We're kind of like moving past it pretty quickly. It was kind of an interesting dynamic for them to work with though. I kind of like this idea of like, because this takes place earlier on in the timeline and Superman is just getting with Lois and it could have created some sort of tension there, but I like that Waid doesn't do that. He immediately, goes into it and just like kind of cuts it off at the pass. Ronal seemingly comes to his senses and speeds off as elsewhere, Batman contacts Superman for some help since Floronic Man is infecting Swamp Thing, turning Alec's body into his own. Jason manages to subdue Alec fully, attacking Batman and Robin and ripping through Robin's rebreather mask. But luckily, Superman's timely arrival saves the boy Wonder, as he welds his mask closed with his heat vision. However, thanks to saving Robin, he can't save Batman, who has his arm broken by the Floronic Man's tight bindings. I really do like the chaos Floronic Man is bringing to the book. He is everywhere, everything all at once, and a real proper threat to the team. Swamp Thing soon blasts Floronic Man out of his body, but this was the wrong thing to do, as Jason, again like before, just disappears into nothing, off to find another piece of vegetation he can inhabit. The heroes decide to turn to the bigger picture here, the war between Tritonus and Poseidonus, as Aquaman finds Ronal alone on a cliff. Arthur doesn't come as an enemy though, he comes as a friend, wanting to talk with Ronal, knowing his heart is hurt from seeing Superman and Lorie kissing. While he talks with Ronal, Mera goes to see Lorie and says much the same thing to her as well, and this sequence made me realize how much like Aquaman and Mera, Ronal and Lorie are. They're opposites in almost every way and kind of like the mirror image of each other. As Ronal says as much here, how can Mera and Aquaman be the people they are, and like why can't he and Lorie be like them? Why can't they figure that out? Arthur doesn't want his defeat to undo all the good he has done for his people, knowing that he's a good ruler even in the face of not wanting the throne or to be king. Arthur reveals that he knows that Ronal was happy as just a normal adventurer, but he had to take the responsibilities of the throne when they were dumped on him by his family's untimely passing. Again, in a way it makes him even more like Arthur, so it's fitting that Aquaman is the one to kind of talk him down off the ledge, so to speak, and relate to him, something he no doubt would have done had Ronal given him the chance earlier. Arthur knows that they must unite their cities together against the Floronic Man, since being apart is what the villain wants. With Atlantis finally reunited, Arthur, Ronal, Mera and Lorie race to help out the world's finest, who has found Floronic Man has reformed into a giant version of himself. The villain decides to give up his game and just infect everyone now that they know his secret, grabbing Superman with his magical vines, which he can't break out of thanks to the underwater vegetation being imbued with the magic. I do like that this is a handicap Waid has written for the heroes here. There's magic, so Superman just can't rip through everything and he's actually weakened by it, and Batman and Robin are just completely out of their element, quite literally, so their weapons and tactics aren't as effective as they are on the rooftops of Gotham. Swamp Thing has had enough of Jason's rampage, also growing to the size of a kaiju to combat the villain, but even with the Green's backing, Swamp Thing is taken down. Told he's just jealous he didn't have this idea first. The heroes being caught by the villain was all seemingly part of the plan though, as while Floronic Man was distracted by the world's finest, Arthur and the others arrive for a surprise attack, using the magical weapons created at the bottom of the ocean to zap all the power off of the vegetation Jason has grown into. With the magical vegetation without its power, Floronic Man reverts back to his normal, but still powerful form. Superman, however, now can take him head on, burning the villain away with his heat vision. Robin deploys some explosives, reducing him to a broken husk of wood and flowers. There's just something so satisfying about the heroes all kind of laying into the villain one after another in the final battle. We see it countless times. We see it in stuff like the Avengers movies and, comics like here. And it's just always so fun to see, the team sort of come together and each of them have like their moment of like just taking it to the villain. It's just so cartoony. Eventually, Swamp Thing rips the villain in two and Superman flash freezes him so he can't escape into the vegetation again. As the team mop up Floronic Man, they notice Ronal and Lorie are missing, and Arthur says they have returned to Tritonus to clean up their mess. The couple have returned to Tritonus, where Lorie confronts her husband about what happened between her and Superman. Ronal fully believes that Lorie will now leave him for Superman again, but Lorie reminds him that they never used to just judge by appearances, and they knew each other's hearts and minds once when they were connected together. Now this is actually quite a sad sequence, as Lorie really lays it all out, knowing that they aren't like the surface dwellers and they don't have to rely on misunderstandings or wrong guesses. They can literally go into each other's minds to find the truth. She even relates it to her own experiences, as she has lived amongst the humans on the surface for a time, and she knows how isolated humans can be because they don't have that telepathic connection that her and Ronal have. And she knows that Ronal is beginning to act like one of them, cut off from everyone and her. She does apologize for what she did, realizing that she allowed loneliness to get the better of her, and Superman never kissed her back. She did all of the kissing. And this is what really surprised me, because I definitely thought there was some sort of mind control sort of thing happening here, but I actually really like this more, because this is a very like quote unquote human moment. It was like that moment of weakness. She was vulnerable and she felt like, she could only return to Superman in just that split second. It was just like that split second of a wrong decision that everyone has made at one point or another in their life. And I really like Wade doing that. I really like Wade making, this character who isn't a human and is actually, a mermaid, and giving them a really humanizing moment here, a very relatable moment. Ronal, however, says that he isn't angry with her or even Superman. He's angry at himself, since he knows Lorie loves him, but how could he ever compare to her first love, who just also happens to be Superman? Since when he sees the man, he is made very well aware of his own shortcomings more and more. Lorie, however, decides to show how much she sees him, connecting their minds together to show Ronal images of them dancing together and being in love. Ronal is brought to tears by the images and reunites with his wife, and now I'm man enough to admit that this sequence actually made me a little bit teary-eyed while reading it as well. The wonderful expression of love, and Wade gave a character like Ronal, rather cliche-ridden, hot-headed, sometimes villain or foil to characters opposite him like Aquaman and Superman, a much-needed third dimension, made him relatable. Especially since, if you were the follow-up to Superman as a romantic partner, you too would have insecurities about yourself. Sometime later, Ronal and Aquaman oversee an antidote being deployed to their respective cities, made courtesy of Superman and Blue Beetle. Aquaman offers Ronal a chance to address their kingdoms together as one nation, and Ronal gladly takes him up on that offer. As the heroes begin to go their separate ways, Superman meets with Lorie, who is ashamed to even see him after what she did. Superman, however, doesn't want to leave a friend in pain and accepts Lorie's apologies, bidding his friend goodbye. Aquaman sees the world's finest off, planning on getting back to his royal duties for a while, as he cracks a rock into the depths with a bit of driftwood, deciding Atlantis also might need its own baseball team as well. Now this is a fun callback to the first issue of the arc, where Arthur is revealed to be a bit of a baseball nerd, and hey, that'd be like kind of like a cool like background gag where we find that Atlantis gets its own baseball team and we get bits and pieces of it here and there in Wade's books. That'd be like a little fun little background gag. Batman Superman World's Finest issue 37 and capped off the team's underwater adventure in a satisfying, fun way. Floronic Man was a great villain for the World's Finest, and putting the team on the back foot constantly thanks to their underwater environment was a great idea. We're going into a big event next issue with We Are Yesterday, the big team up with the Justice League Unlimited book, and hopefully the book doesn't lose its fresh and creative feel it's had for the last few arcs. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Batman Superman World's Finest issue 37 by Mark Waid, Adrian Gutierrez and Tamara Bonvillain.